bounce back from spring marathon. So we've got a mix in here. We've got people getting ready for that marathon in Paris, people still vying for selection, and 10K runners.
So we're at the finish at Deansgate, and the start is not too far away, just a little bit closer to the exact city centre and on Portland Street. And so we'll introduce you to the major contenders as we expect them to be in the women's 10K. We mentioned that it's sort of marathon runners dropping down. Running 10K is always good to just see where you are in speed and sharpness. And Callie Hauger Thackeray, as she is now, the 31-year-old from Sheffield, is here standing on the right-hand side there. And she really has found her distance in the marathon. That's what she'll run at the Olympic Games in Paris. Ran the 10,000 metres at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. You see, she won the Trafford 10K this year, which is just a couple of months ago. It's a very, very fast 10K. I think of British winners of this in the past: Joe Pavey, Helen Clitheroe, Eilish McColgan. But this might be the favourite here, Betsy Saina, running for the USA now, 35 years old, former Kenyan athlete, but has competed for the USA since 2021. Was fifth in the great final, the 10,000 metres in Rio in 2016, close to going below 30 minutes. We'll see how she gets on here today, but major opposition for her in Petaitam Gebre Selassie, the world marathon champion from Eugene a couple of years ago, then silver last year behind another Ethiopian, Amani Bariso, who we'll meet in just a moment. So two very, very good Ethiopian athletes here. There is Bariso, world champion last year ahead of Gebre Selassie. So she has been chosen for the Olympics by Ethiopia. I mean, a marathon personal best of 2:14:58 a couple of years ago, which is obviously high level. And the other group of elite athletes behind, we'll maybe get a chance to tell you about some of them. But those four that we've introduced, you would expect to be heading the way. And so they all start their watches as the gun goes, and a bit of sunshine coming down here in Manchester as the 10K begins. It's a nice start for the 10K here on this route, and we'll tell you about that in just a moment as well, and take you down the route. But it is a sort of downhill start, really. The first 2K is slightly downhill, so you can get, it's a flying start, and you can see those four athletes already, a bit of a gap opening up there, Paula.
Yes, and in the past we've seen some really quick opening kilometres and then building into the race. It is a course where you can run fast in the first half and kind of hang on. It does certainly get tougher, but it's not got any big inclines, and certainly, as you said, today is quite still, so there's not really any sections where that would make it tough. And I think undoubtedly these women will have kept abreast of maybe what happened last night with the new 10K world record on the track, 10,000 metres, sorry, on the track in Eugene, and that will be also inspiring them just to get out and show form and just see if they can take advantage of these reasonable conditions and get a good time in the books.
I mean, we introduced you to those four athletes for a reason. Look at that gap that's already opened up there. I'm interested in seeing how Callie Hauger Thackeray gets on here, because you've got those two. You've got the two Ethiopians out in front, in Gebre Selassie and Bariso, and then there's that little gap back already to Betsy Saina. But of course you don't want to become detached. Now, does Callie Hauger Thackeray mention that she's a marathon runner now? So she'll have a pace in mind, Paula, won't she? And you've got to sort of be disciplined and stick to that, but you don't want to become isolated and running on your own either.
No, you have to run your race and you have to race the other people in the race. I guess where it gets tough here is she will undoubtedly know of Bariso and of Gebre Selassie and of their records. She'll look on paper at their 10K times and she'll think, okay, I've got that. My time is actually ranking up there above them, but because they don't race competitively enough over this distance. So yes, she has to gauge it right and kind of get her head around the fact that she needs to commit to racing here, believe in herself, and I think believe in her strength as well, which is getting stronger and stronger as she grows into the marathon distance.
There we are, the sun continues to shine. Now, what were we concerned about? I always want to see that, talk about the new shoes and how quick they are. Actually, when I watch them going around that corner there in the wet, that's the one thing that they do not do as well as older shoes, if you like, because they're a little bit raised up and they're sort of narrower in the beam as well, and I wonder the grip is not quite there either. And we're looking at some of the other runners. Interesting watching Rose Harvey there, you see in the orange vest. What a story she has, Paul, of someone who was a casual runner, a recreational runner, and then lost her job as a corporate lawyer during COVID, and started training just because that's what people were doing during COVID, and actually got quicker without her really realizing it until she ran some really good times of the marathon, got down to 2:30 and much lower than that now, and suddenly she's off to the Olympics as well.
Yeah, it's a great example of the fact that it's never really too late to start running. You might have a limited number of years at the very top, but when you start those, it's fairly flexible, and it really is all about, particularly the marathon, it is about making sure that you get the preparation in and you get the work done, and when you get that backed up consistently, the results start to come through.
So again, there's the two Ethiopian athletes there in Gebrselassie and Bariso side by side, and a 5 meter gap or so back to Betsy Saina and to Callie Hauger-Thackeray. First kilometre in 3:01. I mean, it's a lovely distance, 10k to work in kilometres, and Paula will, as a true runner, will work in miles as well. She'll convert that for you as well as we go through the 6.4 miles or so, but it's nice to work in K, so 3:01.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me for the mile split, for the equivalent of 3:01. 3:13 is 5:09s, but 3:01 is decent pace. I mean, it's just outside of 30-minute pace, so if they keep that up through, they will be running very close to 30 minutes, and given that they might yet even pick up further into this race, certainly when they're working together as they are, and it's encouraging to see Callie just having the if we can see when to go around the buildings and look down, she has just had the confidence and the courage to move ahead of Betsy Saina, who we were thinking might be somebody who would really figure in this race, because on paper she is the quicker. But as I say, I think the likes of Bariso and Gebrselassie, they've got to prove form as well. They are named in Goitom Gebrselassie is named as the reserve, but that team is not yet set in stone for the Ethiopian team for the marathon in Paris, and Bariso absolutely has to keep cemented her position on that team for the moment, because they will move that around if they need to ensure that the three strongest women go to Paris, and at the moment Callie is not afraid to mix it with them.
And you can see by the body angle and the cadence as well, you can see that they're running slightly downhill, and that will change after about 2k, 2.3k or so as they go out in the dual carriageway, the Chester Road, towards Trafford Park and Old Trafford and everything that lies out there. But again, these are almost ideal conditions at the moment. Again, not too much of a breeze today, because it does become quite an exposed course. You can see the dual carriageway, and those who are so there we are. It's now Betsy Saina's just been dropped a little bit, say about a gap of 10 meters or so, and so Callie Thackeray trying to hang on to the back of the two Ethiopians, Gebrselassie and Bariso at the moment. Just to tell you about the caliber of Callie Hauger-Thackeray, the 31-year-old from Sheffield, Hallamshire Harriers. Her father Carl, there she is in third place, was a very good runner, world half marathon bronze medalist. But Callie is now, as mentioned, running her best at the marathon. I think she was reluctant to do it. I think most runners are, because of the suffering. But she, Paul, has found out that what she is very good at, she has a great engine, she has a great physiology for it, and she has a great aptitude for the suffering which you need to do in the marathon.
Definitely, you need to have a high pain threshold and a high ability to maintain concentration. I think she basically said after her first marathon that she had no idea how much she was going to love it and feel at home, and I think that was evident in how quickly she ran and how you see her now growing in confidence, because here today they've gone through 2 kilometers in 6:03, so she's running substantially into unknown territory over the 10k distance, and her personal best already revised this year on that very fast course in Trafford. If she maintains that, will get significantly rewritten.
There's another Hallamshire Harrier at the front of that second group there, Lauren McNeil. Buxton Bullet, it says. And the notes, there we are. So from Buxton in Derbyshire, and just ahead of Rose Harvey and Lily Partridge there as well. And Birchfield Harrier with a great pedigree. And it's a good group of 4 actually to be working. This is exactly what you want, just a nice group, and you know that they're working at their own pace and the correct pace, and that's why Callie Thackeray at the moment has just, well, I thought she dropped off the back. When we go back to the front, we'll see that she's actually regained contact with the top 2, so she's just sort of going backwards and forwards and wondering if she can stay with the top 2, whereas this 4 have a great opportunity to work together.
They do, although at the moment it has to be said, it seems that Laura McNeil is the one doing all of the work for this group and has done for consistent period of the race so far, and she will be hoping that maybe they can work together and they can key off each other, but certainly the fact that they are a group of 4 really helps, and that's the danger of the committing to go with the pace from the beginning with the likes of Callie, and certainly now for Betsy Siner, who is down the road behind already. You could probably say not having a great day because she's become detached from that group so early in the race, and will become in the sights of that chasing group of 4.
Yes, just as we look at the top 2, top 3 at the moment, the one athlete in that second group of 4 that we didn't mention there was Clara Evans from Pontypridd, the Welsh marathon record holder, so another high quality athlete. So it's not awkward for Callie Hauger Thackeray, but you can see the gap that starts to open again to Gabrielle Selassie and Bury. So this is where we talk about the discipline, and you have to know how you're running and how you're feeling, because you do so much running to a certain pace. You know what the pace is, but when you've got those 2 vests in front of you, you can easily get dragged into a pace that is just a couple of seconds per kilometre quicker than you're used to. Doesn't sound like much, but it's enough.
It will make it painful further on, that is without a doubt, but I think the advantage for Callie is that she now has that marathon strength in her legs, so yes, she will pay for going with this early pace, but can she handle that and still hold it together? She's the one who has to make that judgment, and it is slowing slightly. That is through 3k there in 9:07, so they've scaled it back a little bit to around about the 3:04, 3:05 pace, which is certainly within her wheelhouse, and she will be able to cope with that, and she has to now maintain concentration, and they will probably continue to move ahead of her, but she is significantly ahead of Betsy Siner as we're looking back in this shot, and just behind in the background, just going through the traffic lights out of shot slightly, is that chasing group of 4, which includes Clara Evans, Lily Partridge, Laura McNeil and Rose Harvey.
Yeah, Betsy Siner is in an unfortunate position here, because when you're absolutely on your own, it just becomes that much harder. Again, there's not too much wind to shelter from at the moment, but it's so much easier. It is easier when you have people around you just providing a little bit of a draft, but also providing that pacing. There we are, nearing Old Trafford, which may be nearing the end of its shelf life, and with plans for redevelopment of it, perhaps building an entirely new stadium, just costing $2 billion or so. Jim Ratcliffe and his grand plans. Grand day yesterday for Manchester United. So the other half of Manchester, although as we see Callie Hauger Thackeray being dropped, I know there's a plan for Manchester City having their parade for winning the Premier League to finish here at Deansgate, just about where we are, later on today. So a busy day in Manchester.
Should have just had them run the 10k, shouldn't they?
Should have. No, they're all fast twitch 5ers, and they would have struggled against these runners here. But so still, Bariso and Gabrielle Selassie out in front and working together well. Who would be an Ethiopian or Kenyan selector? We were talking about that last night while watching events in Eugene as well. Some great racing at the Diamond League, the pre-meeting in Eugene, and we'll get a chance to talk about some of the performances there. But that gap again, that's Callie Thackeray is going to see, she's on her own now effectively. Just the vest starting to just ebb away from her in front, but again running her own race.
Yeah, she just needs to maintain her own rhythm now and stick to her own pace and really have that confidence and that belief that she can hold on. As I said, it will hurt, but she's on for a significantly big PB if she can hold it together. And the 2 ahead of her, Bariso and Gabrielle Selassie, they know all about racing each other, and this is a little bit going back to a rerun of the World Champs in Budapest last year, where we saw a breakaway at 37k that was very, very nearly reeled in by the closing finish, but just about judged to perfection. And as I said, the backstory behind all of that is making sure that they try and clinch that certain start line for the Ethiopian team in Paris.
Just looking further down, some of the names that are registering on our computer, Mary McLennan. She had a great London Marathon, didn't she? She's 12th at the moment. But at the front, it may well develop into that battle between Gebrselassie and Bariso, the two Ethiopians. Kali Hauger Thackeray just having to let them go. But again, still running very, very strongly indeed. And those two behind her are not involved in the race. So, well, they might be, actually, I don't know.
They could be. They might have given her a head start. They're just encouragement along the way. Behind her, just looking at the computer quickly, Kali does have about a 21 second lead over Betsy Saina.
So the women off and running and getting deeper, getting up to the halfway mark. And we will get ready for the start of the men's race.
Great Manchester Run, elite men's race.
So again, we have a sort of mixture of marathon runners dropping down, and then the likes of Jack Rayner here, the Australian. He's more a 5-10K guy. The famous Tash, pretty well known. Tash, the 28-year-old from Melbourne. Ran a 10,000 meters in 27:09 in California in March to set the oceanic record. And next up, the man who's becoming ever more familiar to British viewers, Emile Carrera, and from Bradford, Britain's top marathon man at the moment, second quickest of all time behind Mo Farah. He'll be running the marathon in Paris, and again a chance to see what he can do over this distance.
Please welcome your current.
Now, Bashir Abdi, bronze medalist in the marathon at the Olympics in Tokyo and the World Championships in Eugene the following year. Long-time training partner of Mo Farah, coming back from a stress fracture in his lower back, his first race really. Selected by Belgium for Paris. Big, big talent, Bashir Abdi. And perhaps the favourites here in a couple of Kenyans, and Timothy Kiplagat, runner-up at the very quick Tokyo Marathon this year behind his fellow countryman Benson Kipruto, who we'll see in a moment. Kiplagat is reserve for the Kenyan Olympic team. So there is Benson Kipruto here. Only 4 men have ever run a faster marathon than Benson Kipruto after his effort in Tokyo at the start of March. He won there in 2:02:16. Astonishingly quick. He'll make his debut in a Kenya vest in Paris. Also a former winner of the Chicago Marathon. So again, watch the flying start here over the first kilometre. Benson Kipruto looking around. Not sure what for, waiting for that gun. Start as well, so a few elbows being sharpened as they get underway, but they'll quickly space out with those most elite of the elite men at the front, the pace they go off at. I see a slightly down here, just got to be careful. There's Adel Mashal as well, very familiar figure from the track, Paula. Interested to see how he runs today.
Yes, dropping down from, well, dropping up, sorry, moving up from 1,500 meters that he raced in Rabat and, no, sorry, Marrakesh now, isn't it? And also Doha, so he's coming absolutely from the track in with that speed, and maybe that's why you see him react so well off the start line and then just settle back and check it back a little bit as we look at the impressive queues lining up and waiting to get their chance out there on this course.
And this is one of the broader streets here, Portland Street there, that's why they have it here rather than some of the more narrow confines of the parallel streets. So they start there and you can see them just shuffling forward, waiting their turn before they stretch out and get going. You get a gun time, you get a chip time, which is more important because they're going to sound in some time before you'll get across the start line. But Bashir Abdi out in front, and we talk about his talent, and you know him, your husband Gary is his coach as well. So what are we expecting from Bashir Abdi? He's been a great talent for a long, long time.
He has, and he's a great guy as well, and it's great to see him bouncing back from that timeout forced on you through injury. I think sometimes it's extremely frustrating, and he was planning on being able to run the Tokyo Marathon, wasn't able to go and do that because of the injury, and has had to sit that out, let that heal, and then get back into training. And not always a bad thing, that I think, in Olympic year, just to allow yourself to come into it a little bit fresher. This is absolutely just a gauge to see what kind of form he's in. He's been training with training partner Sultan Hassan out in Ethiopia. He's also in this race. Also selected for that marathon in Paris for Sweden, and I think, yeah, we saw a little bit of that frustration coming out there at the beginning, and Bashir just getting out there and just happy to be back out racing and now settling in this pack. In contrast to the women's, I don't think we'll see them have started out quite as quickly, relatively, and taking a little bit more time just to look around and assess.
Just some familiar domestic figures you might have seen in there. Johnny Mellor, Dewi Griffith in there in the pack, which is a bigger pack. You see the start is very different to the start of the women's race, which was very stretched out. 4 athletes going clear early on, but here Getich out front just ahead of the Australian Rayner, but apart from that it is still a very, very big group, so I think a few more contenders, and we'll have to wait some time before things stretch out in the men's race. But the women's race, we're getting very, very deep into things. There we are, right on cue, passing the 6K mark, and it's still those two, Bariso and Gebrselassie, out in front. But that gap back to Callie Hauger-Thackeray hasn't extended, really.
No, she's holding on very, very well. I think they have slightly slowed down. Through 5K, it was 15:09. And there we go, through 6K in 18:15. So that is a 3:06K. So they are slowing as well, which is helping Callie. But undoubtedly, just to maintain them in eye shot and just to be able to keep focused on the back of their backs will be helping Callie. And now the challenge is laid down from Gebrselassie, who has sat for 6 kilometres behind Bariso and let her do all the work. Can Bariso respond?
That camera angle there on the bike just showed Gebrselassie just hitting the accelerator fraction again, just stretching it out, and just that forward lean, and suddenly that gap back to Callie Hauger-Thackeray. Now, when you are alongside someone who makes that move, you know instantly that that move has been made. But when you're 20-30 meters behind, you can't tell immediately, but you then notice the vest just creeping away from you. You go, oh, they've hit the accelerator here.
Yeah, she will notice that. And then we see here Lauren McNeil and Clara Evans have done a great job in catching Betsy Siner. I'm just trying to work out, I think that's Lily Partridge behind, who has just come around the corner further back down the road. So they've worked really well together to reel in Betsy Siner, who unfortunately is not having a great day out there today.
No, Betsy Siner, I mean, she's had a few races in the past where it's been a bit of a struggle. I remember the US Olympic marathon trial, she 22 miles, she was really affected by the humidity there and knew that. But we talked about Gebrselassie hitting the accelerator there, and even Bariso has felt that. So Gebrselassie has made the break just after the 6K mark. Will it be a telling one?
She just looks so easy, doesn't she? I think hugely contrasting styles between the two Ethiopian athletes here. Bariso a lot more arm movement and looks to be working a lot harder, whereas Gebrselassie just very, very quick cadence and just keeping focused on the road, and with that really relaxed facial expression, which can be deceptive. She can be working really, really hard underneath that, and it's very characteristic of a lot of the top Ethiopian women, those eyes down focus, because they spend so much time running on those narrow trails up at Ntoto, just focusing on the tree roots ahead of them and making sure to avoid those. But what the upshot of this does mean for Callie Thackeray is that she can focus on Bariso ahead of her. Bariso has had a little bit of a kick in the belly, metaphorically, in terms of the fact that Gebrselassie has moved away from her so easily, and now can Callie focus on that and give it extra energy to her as if she can reel her in slightly.
You can see they passed an 11-mile marker because this course is shared with the second half of the half marathon course. And the half marathon was won by Crawley's James Westlake, and Eleanor Barker from Barnsley took the women's race. So that finished some time ago. It was a very early start for the half marathon. But there we are, that's a big group of about 15 athletes or so in the men's 10K. So again, a very different style to the men's 10K, because Gebrselassie is surely heading for victory in the women's race. But very interesting to see if Callie Hauger-Thackeray can catch Bariso. But here we are. We talk about Kipruto and his talent, and alongside Rayner and Mashal, but different runners here. Mashal, a familiar figure, 1500, is 3,000, 5,000 meter runner, moving up to 10K here. Kipruto, one of the very finest marathon runners we've seen. Actually, he's a heavier looking build, all relatively speaking. It's a heavier looking build than a lot of marathon runners, Kipruto, but he has a huge engine on him, and he's bouncing along quite happily alongside the man from Melbourne.
Just settling in behind, I was looking for the early leader, Ngatic. I think he is just obscured by Jack Rayner at the moment, but is still in that group. He was keen to get the pace moving early on, but has settled back down now.
So you can see the dual carriageway and the out and back, effectively out and back nature of the course means that as the men head out, they will catch a glimpse of the women's leaders coming the other way, because they've just passed the 8K mark going the other way. Tall upright figure of Johnny Miller on the far side again. There's the very different form of Dewi Griffiths, but again you might well be aware of these athletes if you watch regular coverage. Very, very good, I'll say domestic athletes, but an international class as well. And Emil Carrera, who really has established himself as one of the world's finest marathon runners, right in the middle.
Yeah, and a sprint for Emil today in contrast to that marathon, but he does have the pedigree over 10K. Just quickly, they were through 2K in 5:35.
So there we are. There is the solitary figure now of Gebrselassie coming the other way past that group of about 12 to 15 athletes in the men's race, and that's a huge gap she's suddenly opened up now. So no doubt about who's going to win this, barring some mishap. And there's someone very happy with his performance in the half marathon as well, but that's a big gap, and she's just not quite having a look all the way back to see if she's clear, but just a casual look over her shoulder. But you're right, that gap from second from Bariso back to Callie Hauger-Thackeray remains about the same, but Thackeray can certainly work off that orange vest of Bariso.
Yeah, I think at the last count it was about 6 seconds. It's really hard to tell with the long camera lens and try and work it out from there, but through 7K it was just about 8 seconds. That gap seems to have grown now, I think, significantly beyond that. And there you see the kilometre splits going through the bottom of the screen. So slower 6 kilometre, and then she's picked it back up again now, and that is just through 8K there. So we should get that split slightly, and it's a nice welcome feeling when you're in 2K to go and you see that 8 kilometre marker. And yes, you know it's a slight pull uphill for her, but she's broken away, and I think those consistent looks over her shoulder will be just reinforcing. And there from that shot, without a doubt, Callie Hauger-Thackeray is closing on Bariso as quickly as that gap is growing forward to Gebrselassie.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to be able to work off that figure in front of her. Callie Hauger-Thackeray, and Bariso looks to be labouring just a little bit. She always makes it look slightly harder work than Gebrselassie anyway, Bariso, but you can see this is hard now. And can Callie Hauger-Thackeray use that, I say that engine, that capability for suffering that she has in the marathon, to just work off that and close in on Bariso. Again, it's just staying at that distance at the moment, and it's a tough finish to this 10K. Again, it just starts to ramp up slightly. Now they're into that final 2K, that it's a subtle gradient, and it ramps up right at the very end, but it takes its toll on you.
It does, and it's not a tough course, but it's not as easy a course as the course where Callie Hauger-Thackeray ran her PB in Trafford, and that was 31:12. So when you say she went through halfway in just outside of 15:10, then she's certainly running on tired, sore legs at this point, and it is about just trying to focus them as much as possible. And yes, the new shoes help with that, and yes, certainly it will help that she's really in Bariso, but Bariso also has that strength in her legs, and so it's an interesting, tantalizing battle that's setting itself up there.
So the men are just about getting out to Old Trafford now as well. I think of 10Ks as being, a lot of us casual runners think of 10Ks as being a good old distance, but really it just flies by for these figures. You think of Gebrselassie into the final K now, and that's just a short sprint to home for her. But this is a very interesting race here, the men's race, because just that bigger group, and yes, a few are splintering off the back now and dropping down to a group of about 10 here. But I just wonder who will be the first to make a move.
Yeah, it's not really, it's certainly not been quick so far. In contrast to the women's, I think we are going to see negative splits in this race, so they're going to start racing, and we're going to start seeing significantly faster kilometre splits. You can see Ngatic and Rayner are starting to pick the pace up now, and you can tell that by the fact that people are starting to splinter off, and certainly from that big pack that you could have almost thrown that proverbial blanket over, now it is more spread out. There's no need to shelter today because there is no real wind out there. It is just about not wanting to go too soon. I think a lot more caginess on the men's side today.
I suppose one of the key things about running in a 10K here, Paula, is that you have an idea about how fast you can run, but you have to adapt your plan according to how you feel, according to how many athletes are around there, according to how the pace. And they'll all be thinking at the moment, won't they, about where exactly they might start to push, or is it just reacting to others around you all the time?
I think there's reacting and then there's knowing your own race plan. And if you look at somebody like Gebrselassie, she absolutely ran her own perfect race here today. She was happy to have the pace dictated and to have somebody try and run away from her in the early stages. And there we go. Look at this. That was the absolute classic textbook way to do it from Callie Hauger-Thackeray. When you go past someone, you blow straight past them. You don't wait. You don't hang around. You don't give them any chance to latch onto you. And that will have given her such a boost. And now if she can just hold this last kilometre, because it's not yet over, you can see Bariso trying to tack in behind her, but she really needs to maintain and focus as much as she can on the road ahead of her, because this is an excellent run from Callie Hauger-Thackeray.
Well, it must be quite something when you're coming home in the half marathon and perhaps just trotting home and you see these athletes coming past you, just that you realize the pace they're going at, because sometimes when we're following on a bike or following from overhead, you don't quite get an idea of the speed of them. And Gebrselassie with that easy style now, and it really is into the closing stages now. You can almost hear the music start to swell that is pumping out from the finish line at Deansgate, and you see the pain and discomfort. She makes it look easy, but at whatever level, if you're going to the maximum of your abilities, it hurts, Paula.
It definitely hurts, and we can see that in the splits coming in, and you can see there is more of a frown, there is more hurt happening in the body of Gebrselassie at this point, but she doesn't really care because she can see almost that finish ahead of her. She's probably not got much more than a minute left of running, so she's inside the last 400 meters or so, or should be approaching that fairly soon, up ahead of her. And if I tell you the splits for Callie Hauger-Thackeray, look how far she's taken out of Bariso already, but her 9th K split did drop back to 3:13, so she's undoubtedly paying. They're all slowing, and it's just who's slowing the least and who's able to hold it together.
It's a wonderful run from Callie Hauger-Thackeray. I mentioned her PB set in the Trafford 10K, which is a faster course. It's a flatter course, head out to the southwest of the city here, but she is between two marathon world champions, the last two marathon world champions. Gebrselassie away and clear, and going to win this and become the first Ethiopian winner of this event since the great Tirunesh Dibaba in 2018. Since then, Kenya have dominated through one woman, and Helen Obiri winning 3 of the last 4. Ailish McColgan winning in 2021, but it is going to be an Ethiopian winner again here, and just shown the way here, picking her way through the half-marathon finishers, up the slope on the damp road and into Deansgate and towards the finish line, and trying to pick up the pace as well. A grimace turning into a grin as she comes to the finish line, and she will take victory in the women's 10K here. The great Manchester run through the tape, and a quick time as well. Such an impressive run and such an impressive winning margin, because we cannot see behind her Callie Hauger-Thackeray yet in second place. That's a dominant win from Gebrselassie.
It was, and here comes Callie Hauger-Thackeray now. So she's in the home straight. Her personal best is 31:12. Come on, Callie.
Well, 31:12 on that very quick course, the Trafford course, and she is going to beat it, trying to get below 31 as well, which I think she just did. That's a wonderful run from Callie Hauger-Thackeray. Again, the marathon is where her present, her future lies. She'll be there in Paris. Bariso coming across the line looking very, very tired indeed. But Callie Hauger-Thackeray, that was such a boost for her confidence as well, in terms of, as I say, finishing between the last two marathon world champions. She knows she belongs with the elite now.
She absolutely does, and I think there are so many positives that she can draw from that race today, because she could have run that in an easier way and perhaps come out of it with a faster time. They did go off very, very quickly, and they were certainly paying for that in the closing stages, but she handled that and she was able to rally, and she's beaten some really good big names behind her, in the likes of Betsy Saina, who we've yet to see come in, and Amani Bariso. These are competitors that she would maybe not figure on competing with as we watch this battle now, coming in for fourth place.
Well, a bit of a drive put on as Betsy Saina trying to hold off Clara Evans, and Evans really is driving. I think she has got it on the line. She has. Good run. You see the clock going through 32:09, so just outside her PB, Clara Evans, and so much of the work done by Lauren McNeil as well.
Yeah, and Clara and Lauren had both worked together to get ahead of Betsy Siner, but she just had enough in reserve to get back ahead of them. You see Thomas coming in, and behind her, Lily Partridge.
Yeah, Juliette Thomas, a Belgian athlete, and Rose Harvey, and Lily Partridge across the line. It's Harvey, in fact, just behind Lily Partridge. I say it is just that tough finish to this course because it's subtle, but it's just slightly uphill, and you can see it really takes it out of the Harvey. Just pumping those arms as much as anything else, just under 33 minutes. And actually her PB is 32:50. I think she's just about right on that. Again, Rose Harvey, but again, looking forward to the marathon. There's so many of the athletes here are, whether it's the Paris Olympics or whether it's other marathon challenges later in the year, but having a go at the 10K here. So Rose Harvey, one of the British athletes coming home, and significantly in the men's race, and Getich has made his move, and that group, which was really tightly bunched together of about 10 athletes, has been utterly broken apart.
Yeah, and we said early on that Getich was champing at the bit a little bit and really wanting to get going and get this pace moving along. And now I think at this stage he's really had enough, and he's decided, okay, the pace has to pick up significantly. I think through the 6K it was 2:43, but it looks as though they're moving faster than that now. Jack Rayner behind, and that's Bashir Abdi slotted just behind him as well.
Well, there was only so much space for so many call forwards at the start, and that's why we didn't see Getich. But Vincent Getich, who's third of the Tokyo Marathon, what's that, back at the start of March now, and well, he was second in Berlin last year in the marathon. So again, it's just such a lovely running style that Getich has, and he has put 20 meters into Jack Rayner behind. And there's still a few athletes together. Bashir Abdi is there as well, but then again, that's long lens camera doesn't quite show you that then there's another 10 meters or so back to fourth place. So I think this might prove to be a significant move made by Vincent Getich. Just coming out to the 7K mark as well, and again, once you're into the final 3 kilometers, and these men are they put in however many miles, 120 miles a week or so, and they're used to running marathons, and 3 kilometers is when I said 120 miles a week, apologies, they made the higher gesture.
Up a bit.
Okay, 120 miles by Thursday. How many miles did you do a week at your...
Well, mine were added up, like based on roughly what pace I thought I was doing, because then the technology wasn't really there to measure it perfectly and exactly. And I worked on an 8-day cycle as well, so I'd have 7 days of running and then a rest day. So my 7 days of running would add up to around about 130 at the peak.
130?
Yeah, and that was pre-shoes where they can recover much faster. So I'm guessing that's why I'm saying up, because these men, I think, are running significantly bigger volumes than that, because now they can, and they can recover quicker.
Yeah, I think that is the key point about the shoes. And we talk about the shoes and the pace. They go, well, you've got to be so careful in that corner there, honestly. That's a tight, almost hairpin bend coming down the slope as well. Can easily come a cropper. But what the shoes do is they do enable you to train and recover more quickly, because the damage isn't quite being made to the tissue, and so you can put in higher mileage. So that all adds up. There's just a few kinks in this course, but now you're seeing Getich is just making it onto the dual carriageway and back. So now it's pretty much straight all the way back up to Deansgate, and he can start to fly. But again, a beautiful running action.
Yeah, he's really running freely now, isn't he? And from that overhead shot, you could see just how big that gap was back to Rayner and Bashir Abdi running together. You can see them in the background there, but that's significantly foreshortened in that shot, and I would say the gap is probably at least 6 or 7 seconds now.
Just look at the splits there they were going through. You saw them all there, a lot of them in low 240. So 248 would be, that's a 28 minutes 10K. Just
yeah, if I tell you 245s is 27.50, and 27 flat would be 240 Ks. So yeah, he's definitely picked it up into quick running now, and when you might not think it's a big jump when they've gone from running 250 kilometers to 245, but when you've kind of settled into that rhythm, it's actually hard to pick it up, and particularly as he did so on the parts of the course where there were small inclines in there as well. So to be able to get your legs out of a rhythm they've settled into and settle quickly into a quicker one, he's done it really, really well, and you can see behind the damage that it's done to the rest of the 6 seconds now.
Just look at the splits there that are going through. You saw them all there, a lot of them in low 240s. So 248 would be far more than just the elite runners, because there are various waves of all the, I say fun runners, it is fun, it's enjoyable, but everyone's chasing a quick time as well for their own personal challenges, and so many running for so many different charities, and we'll get into that in greater depth later on. But once we have seen the finish of the men's elite race, and at the moment, as Gabriel Selassie started to dominate the women's race, so Ngetic is starting to dominate the men's race. But for second and third, Jack Rayner and Bashir Abdi. And Bashir Abdi, again, we talk about his quality, and I remember him as a lot of people thought, oh, Jack Rayner's just checking what are they looking for? Looking to see if anyone else is there, looking to see who's there. Oh, it's Bashir Abdi. I might be in a bit of trouble here. Abdi's starting to look far more comfortable than Jack Rayner is.
Just there. I'm not sure if it was also that perhaps he felt that Bashir Abdi was clipping his heels a little bit, and that's why he looked back as if to say, like, mate, if we're going to be here, we're going to work together a little bit. We're not going to sit behind each other. And I think a huge contrast in style, but that is the kind of every emotion is displayed on the face of Jack Rayner when he's racing, and you can see he's working hard, and you can see he was not happy about doing all of the work there. And so Bashir Abdi recognizing that and moving just slightly ahead of him, and both of them significantly looking to be working harder than this man Vincent Ngetic, who now really has this race kind of sewn up. He just needs to see how fast he can run, and he will be using this race as a gauge as well, and perhaps came in with that race plan, just let the first 2 or 3 kilometers settle and then kick on from there and just see how fast can he run.
For those of us who do run 5Ks, 10Ks, and you know how hard it is when you're going to your maximum, when you watch Ngetic seems to be strolling along there and so easily. I've talked about it in the women's race. It's a bit of an illusion. He is still suffering. And
yeah, he almost shook his head then as if to say, no, not really, I've got this easy.
He's
but no, he is definitely working hard. You can see how he's trying to just focus and keep his lower jaw relaxed and focus just on his arm carriage, because by keeping your arms relaxed and moving, then that keeps your legs going in that same rhythm as well. And as I say, the marathon runners are so good at that, because that is the skill of marathon running. When everything is tired and falling apart, you've got to maintain the rhythm. And yes, here's a faster rhythm, but it's much shorter distance as well. So translate that down a little bit. It's almost like he's coming in, when he gets into the last 2 kilometers, that one might be the last 10K of the marathon.
That's interesting. It's when think about it, everybody has their own running style, but if you can just keep things as relaxed as possible, then obviously it's going to make it easier, which again is easier said than done, Jack Rayner, at the moment, because he wears his effort on his face a bit more visibly than Bashir Abdi. And Bashir Abdi coming back from that stress fracture of, I think it was his lower back, was it his sacrum in there? But that's the toll just of running. And as you said, when you have a stress fracture, it's almost your body saying it's time to rest.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those things where there are very little things that you can continue to do. You might be able to do a little work in the water. With a sacral stress fracture, you can't even replace with ellipticals for a while. You have to just let it settle. But it does reinforce again, and for so many athletes, when you have time forced out through injury, when you're able to get back to racing, you are just really happy to be out there and to relish that it is a privilege actually to be able to make this your career. And yes, they're working very hard, and 800 meters to go now for Ngetic, and he is running quickly now, and you can see that lower jaw moving forward a little bit. Without a doubt, he's putting every last effort into this now. Yeah,
for the first time really you see the teeth, you see that grimace on his face, and again you're just pushing slightly uphill, and Rayner's now starting to look around and say, there's Adel Mashal behind, and when you see an athlete in front of you looking behind, Adel Mashal is closing, and he's closing pretty fast here, Paula.
He is, and I tell you, if you want an athlete to be in a sprint finish with, it probably wouldn't be Mashal, so one of these two probably needs to clock or just get the information from someone that it is Mashal that's chasing them down. I think had it been Carrera, and there you see Bashir Abdi look behind, he's thinking, okay, I'm not hanging around with you anymore now, I'm going, because I might think I can outkick Jack Rayner. I'm not sure I can outkick Adel Mashal.
No, I think Rayner is doomed, and there's a man who's run this year 27:09 for a 10, but Bashir Abdi is starting to make his move, and he looks a good deal more comfortable than Jack Rayner. And back to the front, Vincent Ngetic. Well, we haven't had a Kenyan winner. It sounds remarkable. I haven't had a Kenyan winner of the men's race here since Stephen Sambu back in 2015. Faniel, the Italian, won it last year, but Ngetic, there's a big gap to second place. And now you can see how hard it has been and the toll that it's taken, trying to relax, trying to keep those arms moving freely, pulling up under the rail bridge. And when you come under that bridge, you know how close you're getting to the finish. Now, Michal is closing, but that gap is still big enough, I think, for Jack Rayner if he can dig in here. And he's starting to push Jack Rayner.
I think these two are both pushing together. Michal has run a really fast last kilometre, so he's exactly on the same pace as Ngetic now, 2:44 through that last kilometre, and I think that's what the other two have realised. As we go back to Ngetic now, he can see the finish. He's got this all wrapped up.
It was Ethiopia in the women's race. It will be Kenya in the men's. It will be Vincent Ngetic who celebrates and points and raises those arms. And the time was at 27:26 or so across the line. That is.
I think he just missed, or may have just equalled the course record of Misha Togo, which goes back to 07 as far as I can look at.
Well, kudos to Jack Rayner for digging in and driving behind him. Michal is trying to get to Abdi. I think Abdi will just about hold on. Difficult to see in that angle, would have been close, but well done Jack Rayner in holding on for second place there, because it looked like he was suffering and slipping back. Carrera coming through just ahead of Mons, so his challenge lies in the marathon in Paris. A 10K, it's funny when you drop down from the marathon, when you're used to that longer run, to try and lift it for the pace of the 10,000 meters. Emil Keres really has felt that here. And there is Benson Cabruto, expected just a little bit better from Cabruto, and Dewi Griffiths just behind Cabruto. But Emil Keres, you can see the effort he's put in today. But Vincent Ngetic, we're trying to get an official time, see if he has broken the course record there.
He was very close to it, but that was a personal best for Dewi Griffiths that we just saw come in, I'm pretty sure. And it was Mazanet Garami, who is on the long road back from injury and a fair ways from regaining his top form of old. Johnny Miller.
Yeah, Johnny Miller across the line as well. Well, that was so impressive from Vincent Ngetic, and I would say too Jack Rayner, because he really had to show some grit there. It looked to be slipping away from him in terms of podium places, because Adel Michal was closing, Bashir Abdi was looking good, but actually Jack Rayner had enough. Let's see Emil Keres there in 5th place. As we go down a few more, Dewi Griffiths, good 10th place to get a PB. And again, anybody coming in under 30 minutes, just mere mortals. It is something very special indeed. But Vincent Ngetic, well, the quality and depth that, of course, Kenya, Ethiopia continue to have and continue to show. And Vincent Ngetic coming through to take that in a very quick time, actually running negative splits. Mark Butler just showing 13:54 for the first 5K, 13:31 for the second 5K. My goodness, it's a different world. Vincent Ngetic ahead of Rayner and Abdi. They are the 1, 2, 3 in the men's race.
You're absolutely right, Andrew. The pace of these 10K elite runners as they whiz past us here to the finish is just absolutely